In this video, we're going to go over the solution here where if I middle click my clock, then it is going to pop up this Walker dmenu where it lists my currently set time zone as well as a geolocation suggestion that's not being used as a source of truth, but it's there in case I want to use it. And then from here, you can just fuzzy pick whatever you want to do. For example, if I were going to Atlantic Canary, wherever the heck that is, I can just choose that. And then boom, now my system's time zone is going to be set to that, which is apparently 7:40 p.m. West time there. Yeah, I don't want to do that. So let's go back to New York here. And by the way, you can see here, the geolocation is like, hey, by the way, you live in New York or close to it. So probably you want to set that. But in this case here, I can just type in New York, hit enter, and then boom, I'm back to New York. Now, if you're using my dot files, all this is already set up for you. But if you're not, this is going to go over a script on how you can set it up on your own. But maybe before we go into all the code there, I did write a blog post about this one. We're going to go over the why and then jump into the code there. Of course, you can jump around with timestamps as well. But yeah, so basically, I travel to different cities and countries, maybe once or twice a year, and I don't always know what time zone name to look up or set, right? Even within the US, you don't often set the time zone in the actual city you're in because there isn't a time zone entry for that. For example, I happen to live in New York and there is one for America, New York, but if you're in New Jersey or Maine or some other place on the East Coast there, typically you would do America, New York here or other ones that are available. And this isn't limited to like the East Coast on the US, right? This applies to all across the US and the world. So if you want to set your time zone, you have a couple of different options, right? You can basically just Google around for which time zone entry to set ahead of time, just based on Googling where you're going to be going, the city name, country name, etc. Maybe you can put that into a text document. So when you actually arrive at your destination, you can run the commands to set it yourself then. Or maybe you can just set your system right away to do it right before you leave, just so it's already set when you arrive. I don't really like either of those options. And of course, you can do the lookup there after you arrive at your destination too, but that's really the same thing. But in any case here, you have to look things up and manually set it. So then, there's this idea of geolocation services, right? To help solve the above problem, you can use one of these services here, which takes a look at your IP address. And then based on your latitude and longitude, it looks things up in a database and it just pops out a time zone that will match that would be able to be set. Now, this comes with a couple of different problems here to really depend on this being as the full source of truth. Might not be accurate, especially if you're hooked up to a VPN. Some geosites require you to sign up or pay to access information over their API. Some of them will just rate limit you pretty quickly here. So, if you're hitting it a couple of different times, you're not always going to get an answer that you'd like. And life is kind of short, right? In both of the above cases, you have to remember the timedatectl command or other ways to set your time zone here. And, you also have to enter a correct value. Then you might need to also reload your status bar up here. I happen to be using Waybar just so the time actually gets updated. This is something I might do maybe once or twice a year, but I'm a developer. That means I'll spend an hour creating a script instead of manually doing this thing, which might only take me, 60 seconds to look it up, set things, reload Waybar, etc. But if I'm traveling once or twice a year, right, I'm investing 2 minutes of my life into this workflow per year. And if I'm fortunate enough to be able to travel for, another 30 years, that's 2 minutes per year times 30 years. That's 60 total minutes wasted here doing this absolutely agonizing and excruciating workflow by hand like a barbarian. So I think this might be one of the rare times where it actually makes sense to automate it. At least that's what I told myself. So what if we can get the best of both worlds here? What if we can achieve just running a little script here to pop open the menu? This could be through Walker's dmenu flag or just using dmenu directly if you have that. You can even use FCF from the terminal if you just want to run the script here directly, basically whatever you want. And that's going to completely give you a list of all valid time zones to choose from, straight from your operating system with no network calls. It's also going to set the placeholder, just like we saw before, to your currently set time zone, just as a reminder. That's a nice little quality of life improvement, in my opinion here. And then optionally, you can get geolocation assistance. I actually have the script set up to where, you have to pass in the --geo flag to even get this assistance. If you don't want that, just don't pass in the flag. No signups needed. And if you're not rate limited, then, instead of automatically picking on it, because we don't want to use it as a source of truth here, it'll just append it to your placeholder, just like we saw before here. And then you can see like, boom, there it is. Just give me a little bit of help here. We'll show what this is like to get rate limited in a second here. But yeah, this is all thanks to this site here. I don't want to click the link just because it's going to show my public IP address on their page. And I just don't want to feel like blurring my video afterwards. But yeah, kudos to them here because they give you free access. And the rate limit is pretty reasonable because really think about it. You're going to be doing this, what, once, twice a year? Like basically you're not going to be spam clicking this all the time. So, the rate limit is, I don't know exactly what it is offhand, but if you click it a couple of times, that's fine. And it's not like it lingers on for a year. It's like your rate limit will expire after whatever it is, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I forgot what it was, but totally usable. So thanks to them. And then, yeah, like we saw before, you can just fuzzy search for the time zone that you want, select it, hit it, and you're good to go. And then your time zone is going to get set to that. Status bar will get updated, and then you're all set. And usually when you need to set your time zone, that will prompt you for your sudo password. But if you're doing it through a menu like this, you won't really have an opportunity to do that. Now, if you're using my .files, I have that set up so that the timedatectl command is accessible without needing to enter your sudo password. Yeah, I have comments in the little script down here. You'll be able to see that if you want to do it if you're not using my .files. But yeah, anyways, it's going to be a runnable script here, so you can just run it from the terminal, but you can also assign it to any action you want. It can be a global hotkey. You can middle click whatever you want on your status bar. You know, that's really up to you on how you want to set that up here. A couple lines of shell script, and that's all there is to it. But yeah, let's go over what happens here when you do get rate limited. So I'm going to click this a couple times. You can see, you know, okay, it's giving me some assistance here. Let's get rid of it and click it again. Yep, still doing good, still doing good. There we go. Now it just says NA here. So if I happen to be rate limited, then we just won't get any help back here. And that's totally fine. You know, in that case, it's like, well, you know, you're going to have to look it up elsewhere here, but you can still select something else if you want to set it. So if I'm going to go to, I don't know, maybe like another one like in Canada, in the mountain or whatever, I can still set it here. It's totally fine. I just don't get the help here to get the geolocation. But if I want to go back to New York here, then I can just set it and I'm back. So there we go. Cool. Okay. So let's take a look here at the script, which by the way is up in my .files. This sets everything up for you. Complete installation script if you want. Yeah. So let me just pop open a terminal here and we'll take a look. So go to my .files directory here. And yeah, in this case here, I just have it named as .tzset for time zone set. And this is it. So we're not going to go over, you know, every single line of code in excruciating detail, but we'll go into this with enough detail on, you know, if you wanted to just pick this out and use it in your setup without my entire .files, and you'll be good to go. So yeah, in that case here, you know, you just run it like this with no geo assistance, or you can run it with geo assistance if you want to get that if it's available here. So, you know, this command here is going to get your current time zone. I will mention here too that, you know, this is expected that you are running a Linux system here. If you're on Mac OS, this will not work. But if you want to open up a PR against my .files, if you're using Mac OS, then more than happy to support that if it doesn't really introduce a ton of complexity to the script here. But yeah, then we're just going to set the placeholder to this value here. For example, you know, if I were to just grab this here, actually, let me just maybe quit this out and we'll go into Tmux just so it's a little bit easier for me to, you know, pop open some different terminals here. So yeah, if I just run this here, you can see time date, blah, blah, blah. You can see my currently is set to New York. And then we go back to here, and then we go back to that time zone here, zoom in to also just see this. There we go. Then yeah, we're at this point here. We have the placeholder. So after that, it's like, okay, well, we need to figure out like, maybe we can get some geo assistance if we want. So if this flag being passed in, you know, --geo is there, then we're going to do some stuff with curl. So we want to fail early here if we don't get a 200 or 200 like response. We also don't want to wait any more than 3 seconds. So, you know, if you run this command here and for whatever reason, you know, maybe this site is having maintenance or something's not working with your networking, you don't want to wait forever, or maybe the default timeout of the web server or whatever. So in this case here, 3 seconds and we're out. And then also, yeah, silent, of course, in case you run it straight from the terminal. But yeah, now at this point, you know, we have some type of time zone to set here. So we just take the current placeholder and append it to it and we're good to go. And then taking a look down here, then let me add maybe a couple of new lines here just so it's a little bit easier to read. Then, yeah, we're just setting the time zone here to first, you know, into the menu. But first, maybe we can just run this command directly here and just from the terminal and just see what it gets back here. So if we run this one, that's going to list all the different time zones available here. You know, this is local, just, you know, your time zone database that you have on your machine. So there's that. And then once we have that, we can just pipe it into, you know, in this case, I'm using Walker with --dmenu. So it's a dmenu compatible setup here. So yeah, we're just piping in some input into Walker here, setting that placeholder how we want here. And then we'll go over some examples of how to use FZF in a second here. I just want to wrap up the rest of the logic, the last 3 lines here. Then it's like, yep, we're just setting the time zone to the time zone that you selected here. What's really cool about this, by the way, dmenu and Walker with the dmenu flag and FZF. If you actually escape out of this, like for example, if I just hit escape here, that's not going to pick anything. And then the rest of this logic won't work because this is actually going to fail with an exit code that is greater than 0. And then up here, you know, I have set error exit set there. So then in this case here, the script will just terminate and then the rest of this stuff won't get set, which is quite nice. I realized also I set that to UTC. I actually have things set up on my scroll wheel on the mouse where I can just change between my current time zone and then UTC. That's all part of the waybar setup there. Maybe I'll do another video about that. In any case here, this little script just reloads waybar so the time gets updated. You know, you can adjust that as needed if you're not using my .files. And then also we have this little notification being sent to, we saw that a second ago here, you know, just to demonstrate that again here. If I click this, you know, let's just pick the top one, whatever, we can see time zone set to blah, blah, blah. There it is. It's going to go away in a second, or I can just click it to get rid of it. And then here, let's go back to New York and we can see our rate limit already expired. So we're back in business here. So if I needed some help there, I can just do it and then we're done. Cool. Okay. So let's say maybe you're not using Walker. Maybe you're just using FCF and you're just running it from the terminal. Or maybe, you can spawn, instead of this, a custom Walker menu, you can just spawn a floating terminal and run FCF there. There's all sorts of different things you can do. But yeah, let's play around with how we can actually make this work with FCF. Check it out. All we have to do is do FCF, and then I believe it is ghost to basically give like placeholder text, like ghosted text. And now if you run this one, from the terminal at least, so it's not going to be eligible to be running here because it's not like Walker-based menu. But if I do .tz and then set here, then we can get, well, maybe let's not do it with geo support, right? Just to show off that you don't always need to get geo support there. But yeah, you run this one here. We actually have there's our placeholder there, and then you can pick this like whatever. Let's go with this one, and boom, there we go. Time zone has been set to that, and we're good, and we're back in business. So let's go back and run it with the geo flag here, and then yeah, we can see geo NA because hey, it looks like I'm rate limited. That's not a problem. I'll just type in New York here, and then we're back. Cool, there it is. And yeah, if you happen to be using dmenu instead, maybe you're not using Walker, then in that case here, then you'll need to make an adjustment to this command again, and then we can just go with dmenu and then -p, which is going to give basically a prompt. It's not really short for placeholder. So in that case here, you might want to do something like, instead of just having your prompt end there, maybe with a space and something like this, so that you'll be able to type with one space after there. So this is going to be like to the left of where you would type. You want a little extra space there. I actually don't have dmenu installed to even show you, but I did install it real quick before the video just to make sure the syntax works, and it's all good to go here. But yeah, that's it. So if you want to be able to play around with that, you can totally do that. I'm going to bring it back to the Walker solution here. And again, change these lines accordingly here if you need to. Now, I will mention here too, to get this to work where you're not going to get prompted for your sudo password here, you need to add timedatectl to your sudoers file to be able to run this without sudo. So the way that works here, actually, I guess I'll just log in as root. Why not? And we'll go with, yep, there's my password. Cool. So if we go into this sudoers, actually, we don't need to go into the directory. We can just go to sudoers.d, and then I also have this little thing here. Again, if you're using my dot files, all this is set up for you. But in this case here, for my user, I'm just saying, hey, by the way, no password required if you are running this binary here, which is timedatectl. So then this allows you to set your time zone without needing to put in your password here. And if we do, which timedatectl here, there we go. We can see it resolves to this path here. So that's it. So you're all set there. It's a one-time thing. You don't need to do it all the time. And then you're set for the lifetime of your system, or until maybe you remove that file. It's really up to you. But yeah, just going back to this blog post real quick here, I just wanted to mention that, yeah, the source code is all here if you want to go and check it out. I'll leave a link to this one in the description. I even added some comments here, in case you wanted to just modify it to use FCF or dmenu, you can see some details there. Also gives you a heads up, like a one-liner you can run here if you just want to add to that or create this file here to be able to use this without a password here. And then, yeah, one thing that I should have mentioned here too a second ago, if I actually go and copy this and bring this back down to here, if we run this in our terminal now, then we can actually take a look here at the journalctl logs, and we can see that, yeah, it looks like someone's been changing their time zone pretty frequently today. This is only going to be entries for this boot, but yeah, you can use journalctl to grep out the string here, change time zone. You can also do change time, like whatever. I just put it there so it's a little bit clearer on what's going on. But you can see I changed my time zone quite a few times today. A couple times on the video here, and then a couple of times before just to make sure things are working here. But yeah, that's all there is to it. It's kind of nice to have this little audit log of things being changed on your system, which I think is pretty cool. I just want to close out this video, and I'll probably make a whole dedicated video about this one. And this is totally off topic, I guess, for this specific script, even though it's not, but it is, but it's not. Way back in like 2019, I did try to switch over to using native Linux here, but I just had hardware incompatibilities, and that post goes into all the details there on the same hardware I'm using now. Nowadays, Linux kernel has improved, there's a lot more support, etc., and everything works. And back in this post here, and again, like I sort of kind of don't want to go through everything in here, yeah, I have this whole section on like Linux is more than just using Linux, right? It's like your whole mindset is going to change. Again, I want to focus a whole video on this topic here. For now, I think it's important enough to give you the TLDR here. Yeah, I've always used WSL on Windows and VMs before that. And the last 3 months of using native Linux, I have to say I've had basically the best time ever just molding my OS into an environment that helps me be really productive, but more importantly, makes me really happy to use, right? And I feel like this script is one of those examples. I could have just not made the script and just did the workflow every once in a while, but like I had a problem, and basically 1 hour later, I had a fully tricked out solution that works exactly how I wanted to, super easy to modify, easy to share it, could be helpful to others. I learned stuff along the way. Now, if I see an opportunity to improve my workflow, I just do it. It feels exactly how an operating system should be, right? It lets me operate my system instead of harassing me and constantly reminding me at how thoughtless it is. So that's a quick win here. Yeah, in this blog post, and again, I'll make a video about it later, it's not this post, but like the outcomes of it. It's like I had this theory that I'm just going to end up with a ton of little scripts here to help me in my day-to-day. And here we are a couple of months later. And yeah, I modified my existing dot files here to install everything for you. And there's all sorts of different scripts here to go and play around with. Whole desktop environment set up and tweaked and ready to go. I don't want to get too off topic here. If you have any questions about this script here, let me know in the comments below. Let me know if you're going to be using it or not, if you modified it, if you want to make it work with Mac OS, etc. But yeah, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. It really does help a lot. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.